So let me start by giving introduction to myself. I am Jigar Dhulla and I have around 12 years of experience into PHP and around 4 years of experience into Laravel. I currently work with WorldDemp India and I work as a software lead software engineer. And as most of you already know, I also organize such Laravel meetups. Okay, now coming back to the topic of Laravel database migrations. How many of you are a fresher and new to Laravel? Okay, okay, 4 people. Nice. So my target audience for this talk is you guys. I'll be honest. And for the folks who are already aware of this topic, stick with me. At the end, we will try to have some discussion around uh, to do or not to do, some debates kind of thing, a discussion. So my target audience is obviously you four, okay, because uh, I will be going very deep, very like low level. I will be starting from very scratch, like what happens. So obviously you are aware of what database is, correct? Great. Okay, so we'll be covering all these topics. Why use database migrations, what is database migrations, how to run database migration, and additional tips. And more additional tips if you have enough time. Okay, so let's start with why. So in the early days, I won't say early days because I'm pretty sure there are still some companies who use these techniques probably. So one of the company might be that they have no .sql file in their project. Okay, so are you with me? Like, what is the importance of that .sql file of a project? Or can anyone just simply say, Vishwajit? Okay, so let's say we are starting a project. Okay, let's say one person is starting a project. Okay, they are writing code, etc., etc., and obviously their code is connecting to a database. It can be anything, MySQL, MS SQL, etc. For with Laravel, it's usually MySQL. Okay, so in MySQL we have to maintain our databases, state of databases. Okay, I will come to that later. What this is the actual solution. But before that, forget Laravel. A basic PHP application needs to have certain insert queries like DD, DDL and DD. What is the other? DDL and DML. DML, correct. So this what we are majorly what migration helps is basically help with the schema. So in short, .sql files will majorly have the schemas, like let's say for example create table users, etc., etc. These are the .sql files. Why are they helpful? Some people don't create it. Those who are working alone, they don't need it. Okay, those who are working on it. So that's why they don't commit their .sql file into the project. Okay, but when we are working with team, other person needs to know, right? Okay, what is the database structure? So what happens in this case? The person will provide the MySQL dump, like other colleague will provide a MySQL dump, and they will do it. And I'm pretty sure there are still some companies doing like that who are not probably using Laravel. Okay, he's one of that person. Yeah. Using Laravel. Your company does that using Laravel.
We have a like my company uses such a thing because we have a multi-tenant architecture and there was required. We have we migrate on the production using migrations, but when we give it to the development team,
Okay, great. So this is where the problem arises. So especially one of the problem is like sharing the SQL dump. Okay, then there is now let's say for example a dump is created. There is a dump, but what about the recurring updates that we with every new feature we have some SQL changes, right? So that's where That's where I think the most better solution, like I used to work in Newfold where I used to maintain literally .sql file per feature. Okay, this was still good. This used to work, but what is the problem again? But again, the problem is then when the new the onboarding team member is setting up his project, he will include first import .sql file, then he will import all the .sql file that I have created. So eventually, the problem arises that the project owner needs to somehow keep the single .sql file updated. So basically, combination of these two somewhere. Okay, combination of these two, having a .sql file and having multiple .sql files. So this is ideal way of maintaining the SQL file before Laravel or parallelly even somewhere. So if someone is using such thing, this is the technique that you can use, combination of these two, and it should solve your problem, I think. Next, there are related problems to it. So basically, switching between the features become difficult. So we don't have a role, we don't have an alter, like basically rollback what we did. Okay, we don't have that. So that's why it is difficult to switch between features. Now, getting started with new project we covered already, and the this related rollback. So individual rollback, even if we are doing a development, if you want to do a simple rollback, it's not possible. So that's where database migration comes into picture. In a simple terms, what it is, it's a version control of your database. So we usually commit our code, keep our code version controlled. It has versioning. So similarly, with help of database migration, we get this version controlling of the database. So uh, what it is basically, it's help maintain the state of the database. When I say version controlling, it means it is maintaining the state of the database. Let's say with version 1.1 of my application, this was the state of the database as well, because all the related migration files were committed along with that. I will come to that bit later. Here we are covering what. So yeah, that's how it helps maintain the state of the. Then obviously they are part of the code base. Every time we create a new feature, we commit to it. Then the commands that Laravel provides, so basically tooling around this managing database migration is pretty easy. The commands are very simple. Like literally, if you want to create that file, we don't have to do it from scratch. There are commands to help us do that. We'll look at that in the next slide. So let's say, for example, we are creating a flights table. This is one of the example from Laravel project. We want to create a flights table. For that, we need a migration file. Okay, for to create a migration file, Laravel provides a good helper function over here. When we say PHP artisan make migration, create flights table, it will provide a boilerplate like basic skeleton, and we can add data into it. Okay, and that file has two methods, up and down. Okay, and the up method, like any methods up and down, there is a schema class exposed to us, which has like also which uses blueprint class. It has methods to add columns, ready methods to add, to basically map the methods in the blueprint class is basically mapped to columns. I will show you an example in the next slide. It will be more understandable. So let's say, for example, this is the up method, that is the down method. In boilerplate, we usually get this line, this line, this line, and this line. Obviously, that's it. In between, we have to add stuff. By default, it creates ID for us. By default, it creates time for us. Okay. In between, we have to add our own columns. So what this big increment is nothing but a wrapper around a function, wrapper function around three things. One, it will create a ID column for us. Second, it will be big unsigned integers. It will be primary key, and it will also be an auto incremented one. So three to four. It is doing three things for us. So how good Laravel is. So no headache. Second, it's a basic string function. It is an equivalent of varchar. By default, I don't recollect what is the default length that it creates. 255. Even I usually write 255. This is 255. You can mention the length that we want. Same way the airline. Now timestamp is wrapper around two columns. It's not one-to-one mapping with a column, but two columns. One is created at and updated at. Now you might ask what that is, like what is the concept behind this. So basically usually every entry that is created in the database, it has to be created somewhere, like at some point. So that point when it was created, that time will be added in that entry. That is the created at column. What is updated at column? So if that entry is updated, like any update command is created, so then that updated column is automatically updated by Laravel. That's the timestamp for us. It's a ready methods that are available via blueprint. Clear? And the down method is simply we drop the flights. This is helpful in the rollbacks. We'll see in the upcoming slide. All clear so far? Everyone with me? Now, how does it solve the problem? So now we saw a command that was helping us create the migration file. Okay, but now obviously we need to execute it. It needs to actually perform the operations inside the database. So for that, first command php artisan migrate. What it will do is it will start from scratch. Let's say if our migration, we have 10 migration files, it will create all 10 migration files. It will create run respective queries on the database individually. Yeah, all clear? That's the php artisan migrate. Then that same command is also used for updating. So let's say when the application is being upgraded, we add new migration files. There is nothing else. We simply have to run that same migrate command again, and it will upgrade the remaining files. It will migrate the next files. It won't touch the already migrated files. It will do the next files. Clear? Next is migrate rollback. This is the one where the down method is triggered. In migrate, the up method of the migration file is triggered. Here the down method is triggered. So it is helpful when basically we want to roll back. One thing to note over here is that everything is in batches. So when we run php artisan migrate, let's say there are 10 migration files. So all the 10 migration files will get batch id 1 if we are doing it first time. Okay, so when we roll back, all the migration files will be rolled back. Clear? All the migration file with batch id 1 will get the previous batch id, basically. That is clear. Now one more thing. So let's say, like I mentioned, it continues when upgrading. It continues the next migration files. How does that happen? It itself maintains the state with the help of database. So if we look at our database, what it does, Laravel does, it will create a table with the name called migrations. When we run the migrate command, it will simply add all the migration file details into that table. So it knows like what is the next file, what we have already migrated, what are the next files, and what to roll back next. Clear? So here I am summarizing. You are learning Java, right? So this flyway, Laravel database migration. Similarly, in Java there is a flyway tool. This diagram I have copied it from there because it helps me summarizing well. So let's say this is the initial state. Apparently I'm not able to see the color correctly, but all these are green. This is my current state. Table 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So this is the current state of that database. Now we get a requirement where they say remove the table number 4, modify table number 2, and then add a table number 5. So what we'll do, we'll create a migration script for everything. Like add a table number 5, modify table number 2, and drop the table number 4. So we'll write migrations for each file. When we run that script, it will go into that state. If we run the rollback command, it will revert to this state. This is very simplistic diagram. Okay. Now we'll go to additional tips. So this is where even the more experienced person can also chip in, probably add more stuff which I have missed. I already recollected what I have missed over here. Let's say it's on. Okay. So let's start with the flags. The first flag step, it runs only with the rollback. Okay, what does that mean? We discussed that when rolling back batches, what if you want to roll back only one migration file? So that's where we say hyphen step equal to 1. Instead of rolling back a complete batch, it will do only one. Now this pretend flag is very interesting. It was very useful in my previous company. I will say how. So how many of you are aware of dry run command in Composer? Dry run. So what happens is, so Composer install and there is a flag called dry run. What it will do, it will not actually install it. It will simply say what all things I will do. Okay. Similarly, this is a pretend command. So it will not actually run the migration. It will show what all queries I am going to execute. This is the pretend command. It will literally dump all the SQL queries. I will share one benefit how it was helpful for me. I will share that in a bit. The next command is migrate fresh. Migrate fresh. So this is useful for developers who like to start from scratch. They need a fresh database every now and then. For especially the experienced folks, like if the demo data, test data is too much on their local, they need a fresh setup. So you will find them using this more, like every time PHP artisan migrate fresh. Okay, what it will do is it will drop all the tables. Literally drop. There is nothing in between. Literally drop all the tables and then run the migrations from scratch. Clear? Refresh table. The end goal is same. Only difference is instead of dropping the table, refresh will roll back each and every migration. Clear? Roll back each and every migration and then come again from top to bottom. So this one command that I missed is, I don't recollect the command, but more experienced person can pitch in. So there is this command schema dump. What it does is, I will give you a scenario. So let's say in enterprise, let's say there is a Laravel project which is being running since 5.2, 5.3, and there are now hundreds of migration files, literally hundreds. We have seen uh, Frick do give some sample. So one of his projects, he had many migration files. So for that, it's very uncluttered. So Laravel came up with one command called schema dump. PHP artisan migrate schema dump or migrate schema then dump. I don't recollect exactly. Schema dump. Okay, nice. Schema dump. What happens is it will remove all the migration files. But before doing that, what it will do is it will create a MySQL dump. The traditional way what we were doing before, earlier. It exactly does that. It will create a MySQL dump and have a separate directory. If I recollect properly, it will have a separate directory where it will keep this migration. It has a specific naming convention also, mysql schema.sql. It will read only that specific. So how it is helpful is, now next time people get on board, first before, it used to migrate everything. It takes a lot of time. What the next step, like what it helps is, so schema dump will basically obviously create the schema, but when we run PHP artisan migrate, first it will look for that particular file, mysql schema.sql. I might be wrong with the exact name, but first it will take a look at that file. If the file exists, it will import. okay, and then run the remaining migration file. It will solve the update problem also, what we were discussing in the first slide. Similar, but everything is already tooled and this problem was already solved. This is just less cluttered. So that's the MySQL schema dump. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say, like you said, one of the projects which is like enterprise project, there are hundreds of files. Let's say similar situation I came into, and I want to club all the migrations and create one migration to to reproduce the same database. The reason being that when we have hundreds of migrations, it takes a lot of time for the migration to complete. Specifically when we are doing the PHP testing, because every time it will migrate whole thing and again roll back all the migrations and again it's too much time, and most of the time, let's say 80% of the time of that particular PHP unit goes into this particular dumping and creation. So, is it possible that there is a way to shortcut to plug these all migrations together and create one file and then run the one file item?
Schema dump.
So it will create one file for all.
Yes, it will literally create one file, one .sql file, and squashing all the migration into one file, and it will remove all the migration.
So I was looking for the same.
Yes, and this is the problem many people are facing, especially with long running projects, and this is how they have solved it.
Another question.
Yeah.
Will it effectively reduce the speed of unit testing?
Definitely.
If it does happen.
Definitely.
That was one major reason why this was, because your tests use the database refresh fail, right? So every test, every method is basically doing that same thing, and that's why this feature was introduced. Apart from this fact of squashing it, the tests were significantly faster. I think we had given talk about how this feature was implemented and how it significantly improved the test.
One more on the related point, one more thing I can think of is, so let's say if there are many migrations, so I believe there are multiple connections that happens to and fro.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it is obviously like logically importing one .sql is much better compared to 100.
I was talking about it because migration has to process. It will run the PHP code, it will analyze the schema, validate the schema, then actually run the command. And
it's definitely
one command. There are going to be a lot of commands for each and every column, and then it's foreign keys. So all this takes time. Even if we run MySQL, it will take time. But at least it will be way faster as compared to the schema.
Yep.
So can we also do something like that, like schema dump? Can we actually